Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today it's time for us to review for you Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by me, which is not super uncommon these days, but I'm still pleased when it happens. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Licensed games have a history of being largely a bit pants. There are notable exceptions, of course, but for every GoldenEye 007 or SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, there's fistloads of the like of Eminem's Kart Racing Superman 64 and the Wii version of Iron Man. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl tries to buck that trend by getting the developers of Slap City to make it, a game held as one of the very few contenders to Super Smash Bros, and we promise that is the last time we'll mention that series. Big names from Nickelodeon, a competent developer, it's all looking promising on the face of it, but is it worthwhile in practice? If you didn't know, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is classified as a platform fighter, a genre which has you dealing damage to your opponents in order to make them easier to knock into death planes on all four sides of the screen, popularized by the Super Smash Bros. Series, damn it. Each of the 20 fighters have roughly 18 moves they can perform, as well as a rudimentary grab, block, and jumping mechanics. 18 moves may sound like a lot at first, but a lot of these are often semi-duplicates that change slightly because they're performed in the air instead of on the ground. And if 18 still seems like a lot, then don't look into a certain hero in a certain Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, damn. All the moves are easy to perform, and each of the characters' moveset is unique to them. The movesets on offer aren't as varied or original as we'd like, however. For example, Aang from the excellent Avatar: The Last Airbender features moves only suitable for close quarters, which feels distinctly odd given his favored fighting techniques in his own media. There's definitely been some serious consideration to have characters represent their source media, a personal highlight of ours being Ren and Stimpy throwing Log from Blammo, but many other moves of each fighter feel like they were developed simply because they had slots to fill. Many of the moves on show are rather simple attacks, but some have deeper mechanics at play, all of which are well executed and satisfying to master. What isn't so satisfying, however, is the explanation of these moves in-game, or more specifically, the lack of them. Most moves are self-explanatory, others have a brief explanation that is serviceable, others don't do a good enough job of explaining things, but worst of all, some aren't even listed. Toph, for example, has a down special that is a sort of a front flip with a heavy iron boot, but when she's in the air, she creates a floating platform of earth, and the latter is not listed in her moveset list at all. Presentation is also a mixed bag. For the most part, the game looks fine on Switch and runs at a decently stable 60 frames a second on most stages. On a few, however, the frame rate seems to really suffer, and it's not entirely clear as to why. Aside from that, a lot of the characters have had to make the transition from 2D to 3D, which can be a difficult task, but the artists have done a very good job of making that leap, especially for the likes of Nigel Thornberry, who looks just as terrifying as you'd want him to be. Other areas are less well realized, especially in regards to soundtrack. Some tunes are perfectly fine, but others, such as the theme for the Western Air Temple stage, are just downright unpleasant, like an 8-second loop, if even 8 seconds. And worse yet, most of the tracks in the game, including the one in the main menu, have an obvious cut when they're attempting to loop, which you maybe wouldn't notice if you weren't listening for it, but I noticed. Artwork rewards for completing the single-player arcade mode don't fill the screen properly, and there's no voice acting whatsoever. The entire package feels like it's missing a lot of polish in several areas. But you'll notice we've not yet talked about the actual gameplay beyond the nitty-gritty of movesets, and that's mostly because we wanted to get some grievances out of the way before we start talking about this. In short, when you're actually fighting, the game is excellent. The mechanics are tight, the potential for combos is vast, and each character has distinct strengths and weaknesses. We aren't going to comment too much on balance, as this is something that evolves throughout such a game's lifetime, but we will say that although some characters do indeed feel higher tier than others, this is just as likely due to our own personal playing styles. The game shines its brightest in classic one-on-one bouts against another player, and pleasingly, this is just as much fun online as off. The target audience is likely to be mostly interested in playing as SpongeBob and beating beating up Patrick, but there is clearly a drive towards appealing to a completely different set of players. You know, the sort who knows what DACA stands for. Consideration has been taken to make sure this subset of fighting fans is properly catered to, but without overwhelming the more casual audience. Things can get a bit hectic at times, but that's part of the fun, and the intentional inclusion of fan-favorite bugs-cum features like wave dashing helps to really give the combat its own unique and slick feel. Naturally, you can also play with 4 total players, but it has to be said that the frenetic nature of a good fight in this game makes it a bit difficult to properly parse everything that's going on. You can also select between stock and timed battles, as well as a few sports game modes that have you unsurprisingly performing sports-like objectives, like attacking a ball to land in your opponent's goal hole, but nothing major to write home about. Nice that they're here, but nothing major. Online boasts custom lobbies, quick play to slap you right into the fray with someone else, and competitive play that restricts the stages that can be chosen, as well as employing a simple ranking system. All except the custom lobbies appear to be restricted to one-on-one bouts, but as we feel we've made abundantly clear, this is easily where the game is best. It allows for more stable connections, and we can't imagine many instances where you'd want to play with 4 people, except when you're with friends anyway, so we're not complaining. Online matches are also pleasingly smooth, with very little in the way of latency. We did experience a single match which seemed to run at about 15 frames a second and removed basically all of the particle effects. No idea what was going on there, but it was absolutely the exception to an otherwise joyous online experience. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is a solid platform fighter with an awful lot of hidden depth, and also an unfortunate lack of polish outside of the fighting. If hardcore gameplay is the #1 concern, you'll have a wealth to sink your teeth into here, but expect to be underwhelmed by various elements that surround it. There's a grand old time to be had here, but bear in mind that it's no Super Smash Bros. Damn it! You've reached the end of the review, and that means it's time for Alex's offhand thoughts, and yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I must admit, in the run-up to it, I was a little bit concerned. I thought that maybe it was getting a little bit... I don't know how to describe it, but I was sort of thinking that the polish was not going to be there, and it's not, you know, in stuff that's it's outside of the fighting, but the actual core gameplay is way better than I expected, and when I first started playing it, I'm not going to lie, I tried playing it like Super Smash Bros, and... yeah, obviously, it has a lot of similarities to that. That's kind of the, you know, that's why I have all the jokes in the review about saying it. But you have to play it very differently. It's way more frenetic. It's arguably, if you're fast and you know what you're doing, it's maybe a little bit more forgiving, less punishing. But at the same time, I could be playing it in a completely different way to what you are. I tried playing it as Smash Bros at first and then realized I had to be way more aggressive, way more aggressive. You can't be as calculated, and that's generally how I play Smash. I try and be a little bit more calculated and wait for an opportunity, rather than going in, you know, guns blazing like, you know, someone who might play as Sheik, for example. I tend to play heavier characters, and I like to be able to punish and be cruel and things like that. That's just how I play. But this game, you can't do that. You got to be so full on. There's blocking, but there's no, like, ground dodging or spot dodging or anything like that. So there's far less evasive options. I mean, there are, you know, there's things you can do, but it's just a very different experience overall. And you know what? I am glad of that, because if this was just trying to copy Smash as closely as possible, it wouldn't be worthwhile. But as it stands, I would say it's worth having both of these games if this is your bag, because this is such a different experience. I still think Smash is the better package overall by a long shot, but in terms of like core gameplay, I was really, really pleasantly surprised by this. If they can, you know, sort of add some more polish with patches, updates and things like that, and maybe sort of, yeah, just make things a little bit better overall, a little bit more polished, this is gonna be fantastic in the future. But as it stands at the moment, that's how we got to review it, and it's still blooming good fun, but blimey, it's got some rough spots.